Elliot, wait. Please. I hadn't heard Mason Carter say please in almost 8 years, and somehow that made me hate him more. I was standing outside a tiny coffee shop in downtown Portland with a laptop bag cutting into my shoulder, a half-empty iced coffee in one hand, and the worst part of my high school life standing 6 feet away from me like he had every right to say my name. For a second, my body forgot I was 25. I wasn't a freelance designer with rent due and client emails piling up. I was 17 again, frozen in a hallway, while Mason laughed too loud and everyone else laughed because he did. My stomach dropped before I even turned around. I knew that voice. Lower now. Rougher. But still his. I looked over my shoulder, and there he was. Mason Carter. Dark hair under a faded gray beanie, black work jacket with a garage logo stitched over the chest, hands shoved into his pockets like he didn't know what to do with them. He looked older in a way that felt unfair. Less sharp around the edges, maybe. Bigger shoulders. Tired eyes. A small scar near his chin I didn't remember. But my brain didn't care about any of that. My brain just saw the guy who used to lean against lockers and call me pretty boy, like it was supposed to make everyone laugh. I tightened my grip around my coffee. No, his face changed. Not dramatic. Just enough. Like he expected it, and still wasn't ready. Just 1 minute. I gave him a short laugh, the kind that didn't have any humor in it. You already had years. A couple walking out of the coffee shop slowed down like they could feel the tension without understanding it. Mason noticed too. His jaw tightened, and he stepped back instead of closer. That surprised me. The old Mason would have closed the distance just to prove he could. I know. His voice came out quieter. I know I did. Rain had started again, soft enough to mist the sidewalk, but not enough to make people run. It dotted his jacket and clung to the ends of his hair. I hated that I noticed. What do you want? He swallowed. Actually swallowed, like the question hurt going down. To apologize. My chest tightened so fast I almost laughed again. That's it. No. He looked at the ground, then back at me. His eyes didn't slide away this time. Not just some quick sorry, so I can feel better. I've wanted to say it for a long time. I stared at him. Part of me wanted him to smirk, to make a joke, to become the version of him I knew how to hate. But he just stood there, nervous and soaked by the light rain, looking like he was waiting for me to decide whether he deserved to breathe near me. I don't care, I said too fast. Elliot, don't. My voice cracked on that one word, and I hated him for hearing it. His hands came out of his pockets, then stopped halfway, like he almost reached for me and thought better of it. Good. At least one of us remembered boundaries. I turned to leave. I made it 2 steps before he said, I remember what I called you. My feet stopped. The whole street seemed to go quiet under the rain. Mason's voice dropped behind me. I remember the hallway outside, Kim. I remember knocking your sketchbook out of your hands. I remember laughing when Tyler read your notes out loud. I remember all of it. My throat went dry. He wasn't supposed to remember details. He was supposed to say he'd been dumb, that we were kids, that it wasn't that serious. That would have been easier. I turned back slowly. Mason looked wrecked. Not forgiven. Not even close. Just wrecked. Then you remember enough to leave me alone. He nodded once, like I'd hit him and he was accepting it. I can do that. I should have walked away right then. I should have taken the clean exit. But then he added, almost under his breath, I just needed you to know it was real. The apology, not the person I was. I felt something twist in my chest, and I hated that too. Because people like Mason didn't change. They just got better at sounding sorry. I forced myself to meet his eyes. You want a chance? His expression barely moved, but his breathing changed. Yeah. I stepped closer, just enough that he had to look down at me. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingers. Then prove it. Mason didn't smile. He didn't look relieved. He just nodded, slow and serious, like I'd handed him something fragile. Okay. I turned and walked away before my face could betray me. I told myself it meant nothing. An apology was just an apology. A guilty man saying the right words in the rain. But I still felt his eyes on my back all the way to my car. And the worst part was, I didn't know if I wanted him to stop. I did not expect Mason to actually try again. That was the stupid part. I thought I had scared him off outside the coffee shop, and honestly, I wanted to believe that. It made things cleaner. Easier. One awkward apology in the rain. One dramatic little sentence from me. And then we both went back to pretending the past stayed buried where it belonged. But 3 days later, I found a folded napkin tucked under the windshield wiper of my car. At first, I thought it was a parking ticket, which would have made more sense. Instead, it was from the coffee shop. Same brown recycled napkins they kept by the sugar packets. My name was written on the outside in careful black ink. Elliot. My chest tightened before I even opened it. I stood there in the grocery store parking lot with a bag of frozen food slowly sweating against my wrist, staring at that stupid napkin like it might explode. Inside, there were only 2 lines. No pressure. I just wanted you to know I meant what I said. I read it twice. Then a third time, which annoyed me. It was not romantic. It was not sweet. It was a napkin. People wrote phone numbers and sandwich orders on napkins. That was all. I shoved it into my jacket pocket and told myself I would throw it away when I got home. I did not. The next time I saw him, my car had decided to embarrass me in the same grocery store parking lot. Of course it had. The engine clicked twice and gave up like it had personal issues. I sat there gripping the wheel, whispering, "No, no, come on," like begging a 12-year-old Honda had ever worked for anyone. My phone was at 8%. It was already dark, and the first garage that picked up was Carter and Sons Auto. I almost hung up when I heard the last name. Then the woman on the phone said they had a tow driver nearby. I told myself it would not be him. Obviously, it was him. Mason pulled up 15 minutes later in a dark tow truck, headlights washing over my windshield. When he climbed out, he paused the second he saw me, like he was giving me a chance to tell him to leave. I almost did. My pride had the words ready. But the wind was cold, my phone was dying, and my car was very committed to ruining my night. Mason stopped a few feet away. "You okay?" I hated how normal he sounded. Not smug. Not pleased with the coincidence. Just careful. My car is not. His mouth moved like he almost smiled, but he stopped himself. "Mind if I take a look?" I handed him the keys without touching his hand. Petty, maybe. Necessary, definitely. He noticed. Of course he did. He opened the hood, leaned in with a small flashlight between his fingers, and worked in silence for a while. No jokes. No old memories. No fake friendliness. Just the soft clink of tools, cars passing behind us, and Mason checking wires like this was any other call. That somehow made it worse. I leaned against the side of my car, arms crossed. "You do not have to act like I am made of glass." Mason glanced over the hood. The light caught his face for half a second. "I know. Then why are you being weird?" He looked back down at the engine. "Because I am trying not to be the wrong kind of familiar." That shut me up. My fingers tightened around my sleeves. I did not have a comeback for that, and Mason did not look proud of himself for saying it. He just kept working. A minute later, he reached past me for a rag sitting on the edge of the hood. Our hands brushed. Barely. His knuckles against mine. It should have meant nothing. It was cold, accidental, gone in less than a second. But my body reacted before my brain could bully it into behaving. My pulse jumped. Mason froze too. Not long. Just enough for me to notice. Then he pulled his hand back first. "Sorry." I swallowed. "It is fine." It was not fine. Nothing about this was fine. He finished tightening something near the battery, then stepped back. "Try it now." The car started on the second turn. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt strangely cornered by the fact that he had helped me and asked for nothing. I climbed out, reaching for my wallet. "How much?" Mason wiped his hands on the rag. "Dispatch will charge the basic call fee." "That is it. You fixed it." "It was loose battery corrosion. Took 5 minutes." "Mason." His name came out sharper than I meant. He looked at me then, really looked. "Elliot, I am not trying to buy forgiveness with a car battery." The space between us went quiet. I wished he had not said my name like that. Like he was holding it carefully. Like it was something he did not deserve to touch. I looked away first. "Good." He nodded, but his eyes stayed on me a second longer. "For what it is worth, you still take your coffee black, right?" My stomach did something stupid. I turned back too fast. "What?" Mason's ears went a little pink, or maybe it was the cold. "At the shop. The other day. You ordered black coffee. You used to drink it that way in high school, too." I stared at him. "You remember that?" He looked down at the rag in his hands. "I remember a lot of things I should have paid better attention to." I told myself that line was guilt. Just guilt wearing a softer voice. But when I drove home, the napkin was still in my jacket pocket. And this time, I knew exactly where it was. The thing about someone trying to prove they have changed is that you start looking for the lie. At least I did. For the next week, every time Mason showed up near the coffee shop, or passed my table with a quiet nod, or stood in line without looking over too much, I waited for the old version of him to slip out. A smirk. A cruel joke. Some little reminder that I had been stupid for letting him close again. But it did not happen. And that bothered me more than it should have. On Thursday afternoon, I was working from my usual corner table, headphones in, pretending I was not aware of him ordering at the counter. He was still in his garage jacket, sleeves pushed up, hair messy from the wind. The barista, a girl with a nose ring who knew my order by memory, glanced between us and smiled like she had just discovered free entertainment. Your friend is here again. I almost choked on my coffee. He is not my friend. Mason heard that. Of course he did. His shoulders went a little still, but he did not turn around. The barista lifted both hands. Okay, not your friend who keeps buying black coffee and looking like he wants to apologize to the furniture. Heat climbed up my neck. Can I just get my receipt? She slid it toward me, still grinning. Mason picked up his drink and walked over, but he stopped a safe distance from my table. I can leave. That made me feel worse for some reason. I did not ask you to. His eyes flicked to the empty chair across from me, then back to my face. He did not ask. He waited. I hated that too. The old Mason never waited for permission. He took space like the world had handed it to him. This Mason stood there with a cardboard cup in his hand, giving me every possible chance to say no. I looked back at my laptop. 5 minutes. The chair scraped softly as he sat down. Not too close. Not relaxed either. For a while, neither of us said anything. I pretended to edit a logo draft. He pretended not to watch my hands move across the trackpad. It was ridiculous. Quiet. Awkward. Too normal. Then my laptop charger slipped off the edge of the table. Mason caught it before it hit the floor. Fast. Automatic. His fingers closed around the cord at the same time mine reached down for it. And suddenly we were both leaning under the table, too close in the cramped space between the wall and our knees. My shoulder brushed his chest. Barely. My breath caught anyway. Mason froze like touching me by accident was a test he was terrified to fail. Sorry. His voice was low enough that I felt it more than heard it. I pulled back too quickly and hit my shoulder against the table. Ow. You okay? His hand lifted, then stopped in midair. He looked at his own hand like it had betrayed him. I rubbed my shoulder, trying not to look embarrassed. I am fine. The barista passed behind us at exactly the wrong time. That looked emotionally complicated. I closed my eyes. Please do not. Mason let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Not mocking. Nervous. Careful. The sound did something strange to me, and I wanted to be mad about it. I wanted to be mad about everything. Instead, I looked at him and noticed the small cut across one of his knuckles, fresh and red. You are bleeding. He glanced down like he had forgotten. It is nothing. That is usually what people say before getting tetanus. His mouth twitched. You worried about me now? It should have been a joke. It should have landed easy. But the second the words came out, the space between us changed. Mason stopped smiling first. I stopped breathing second. His eyes held mine a little too long, and suddenly the coffee shop felt too small, too warm, too full of things neither of us knew how to say. I looked away. Do not make it weird. I am trying really hard not to. That was worse. My fingers tightened around the edge of my laptop. Why? Mason looked down at his coffee, thumb rubbing slowly against the cardboard sleeve. Because I know I already made everything weird for you once. The honesty hit harder than any apology. I did not have a clean place to put it. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A message from an old high school contact I had not spoken to in years. Saw you at Bean House with Mason Carter. Wild. Did not know you two were cool now. My stomach dropped. Mason noticed my face change. What happened? I locked the phone too fast. Nothing. His expression tightened, not with suspicion, with concern. Elliot. I hated the way my name sounded coming from him now. Softer than it had any right to be. I stood, shoving my laptop into my bag. Your 5 minutes are up. Mason stood too, but he did not block me. He only nodded, hurt flashing across his face so quickly I almost missed it. Almost. I walked out into the cold afternoon with my heart pounding and that message burning in my pocket. I told myself I was leaving because of the past, because of what people would say, because Mason Carter did not get to sit across from me in a coffee shop and make my chest feel tight like he had never broken anything. But halfway to my car, I realized the worst part. I was not scared because I still hated him. I was scared because I was starting not to. I made it almost 2 full days without answering Mason's last text. Not because he had done anything wrong. That was the problem. He had not pushed. He had not asked why I left the coffee shop. He had only sent one message that night. Hope you got home okay. That was it. No sad paragraph. No guilt trip. No little performance of being wounded. Just 6 normal words that somehow followed me around my apartment like a ghost. By Saturday night, I needed air, so I let my friend Nora drag me to a small bar in southeast Portland where the floors were sticky and the music was always a little too loud. I told myself Mason would not be there. Portland was not that small. Apparently, Portland was absolutely that small. I saw him near the pool table the second we walked in, standing with 2 guys in work boots and a woman I did not recognize. His jacket was gone, black t-shirt instead, hair pushed back like he had run his hands through it too many times. He looked up at almost the exact same moment. Our eyes met across the room. My chest did that stupid tight thing again. Nora followed my stare. Oh, that is him. Do not start. I did not say anything. Your face did. Mason did not come over right away. He looked like he wanted to, then looked at Nora, then looked back at me. Waiting. Always waiting now. I hated how much that mattered. I made it 20 minutes before the past found me anyway. Tyler Brennan, one of Mason's old high school friends, appeared near our table with a beer in his hand and the same lazy grin he used to wear in the cafeteria. No way. Elliot Hayes. My whole body went cold. Nora glanced at me, instantly alert. Tyler leaned against the edge of the table like we had ever been friends. Man, I almost did not recognize you. You got all serious. I forced a thin smile. People grow up. Some of us. His eyes flicked over me, amused in that old way. Still doing the artsy thing? My throat tightened. I knew that tone. The one that sounded harmless until everyone around you laughed. Before I could answer, Mason was there. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just suddenly beside me, close enough that Tyler straightened a little. Move on, Tyler. Tyler blinked, then laughed. Relax, Carter. We are just catching up. Mason's jaw flexed. No, you are not. The table went quiet. Even Nora stopped breathing for a second. I stared at Mason's hand resting near the back of my chair, not touching me, not claiming space over me, just there. A line. Tyler looked between us, smile turning sharp. Oh, that is what this is. My stomach dropped. Mason did not look at me. He kept his eyes on Tyler. I said move on. Something in his voice made Tyler lift both hands and back away, muttering, whatever, man. The second he was gone, I stood too fast. I need air. I heard Nora say my name, but I was already heading for the side exit. The alley behind the bar smelled like rain and cigarettes. I braced both hands against the brick wall and tried to breathe like a normal person. A few seconds later, the door opened softly. I did not have to turn around. I am sorry. Mason stayed by the door, giving me space. Did I make it worse? That question hit me harder than the whole thing inside. I laughed once, shaky and quiet. You used to be the reason people talk to me like that. The words landed between us. Heavy. Ugly. True. Mason looked down. I know. Then why did you stop him? His eyes lifted to mine. Under the weak alley light, he looked almost scared of the answer. Because I should have been the first person to stop it back then. Not the reason it happened. I forgot what I was going to say. The rain had started again, barely more than mist, collecting on his eyelashes and darkening the shoulders of his shirt. He took one slow step closer, then stopped. Elliot, I know this does not fix anything. Then stop saying things that sound like they do. My voice came out too soft. Mason swallowed. I am not trying to fix it with words. Then what are you trying to do? For a second, neither of us moved. The music from inside thumped faintly through the wall. A car hissed past on the wet street. Mason looked at my face like he was memorizing where the hurt still lived. I am trying to become someone who would have protected you, he whispered. My chest pulled tight. Too tight. I looked away, but he reached out, then stopped with his hand between us. Not touching. Asking without asking. I should have stepped back. Instead, I looked at his hand. Then at him. Mason's fingers brushed mine. Barely. A question. My hand stayed there. His breath caught. Mine did too. The space between us shrank by maybe an inch, maybe nothing at all, but it felt like the edge of a cliff. His eyes dropped to my mouth for half a second, then snapped back up like he hated himself for it. My heart slammed once hard. Mason, the side door swung open. Nora froze in the doorway. Mason pulled his hand back so fast, it almost looked painful. I stepped away from him, heat crawling up my neck. Nora looked between us, careful and quiet. Everything okay? I said yes at the same time Mason said, I should go. He did not wait for me to stop him. He walked past Nora, back through the bar, and left me standing in the alley with my hand still tingling from a touch that almost became something else. I told myself I was relieved we got interrupted. But when Nora asked if I wanted to go home, I kept staring at the door Mason had disappeared through, wishing for one more second before it opened. I thought the alley thing would disappear if nobody talked about it. That was usually my best strategy. Ignore the feeling long enough, and maybe it would get bored. But Nora had seen too much. She waited until we were in her car, heaters blasting, windshield wipers dragging rain across the glass, before she finally looked over at me. So, I stared straight ahead. Do not. I have not even said anything. You said so. That is worse than words. She tapped her fingers against the steering wheel, trying not to smile. Elliot, I walked outside and found you standing 2 inches from the guy you claim to hate, looking like a Taylor Swift bridge was happening in real time. My face went hot. That is not what it was. Then what was it? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Nora softened a little. That was the problem with her. She joked until she saw where it hurt. I am not judging you. I looked out the window. Maybe you should. Why? Because it is Mason. The name sat there between us, heavy and stupid. Nora had known pieces of it. Not everything, but enough. Enough to know he was not just some guy who owed me an awkward apology. She turned the radio down. Has he made you feel unsafe now? I hated how fast the answer came. No. Has he pushed you? No. Has he acted like you owe him forgiveness? I swallowed. No. Nora nodded slowly. Then maybe the scary part is not him right now. Maybe it is that you do not know what to do with the version of him that is actually trying. I wanted to argue. I really did. But my phone buzzed before I could. For one dumb second, I hoped it was Mason. It was not. It was another message from that same old high school contact. You and Carter are seriously hanging out? That is crazy after everything. Then another one came in right after it. Tyler was telling people at the bar. Said Mason almost started something over you. My stomach dropped. Nora noticed my hand tighten around the phone. What? I locked the screen. Nothing. That was not a nothing face. I did not answer. By Monday morning, it had gotten worse. 3 people I had not spoken to in years suddenly remembered I existed. One sent a laughing emoji. One said, did not see that coming. One just wrote, Mason Carter? Really? Like my life was a group chat topic they had all been waiting to reopen. I told myself it did not matter. These people had no power over me anymore. I bought oat milk even though it was too expensive. I was not 17 in a hallway. But my body did not care. By lunch, I could not focus on work, so I went to Bean House, mostly because routine felt safer than my apartment. Mason was already there. Of course he was. He stood near the counter with 2 coffees in front of him, looking unsure the second he saw me. One was black. Mine. I knew it before he touched it. I was not sure if he would come. His voice was careful. I glanced at the cups. You buying coffee for ghosts now? A small breath left him, almost a laugh, but he did not push it. Only the stubborn ones. It should not have made my chest loosen. It did. Then his eyes moved over my face, and whatever softness had been there faded. What happened? I wanted to lie. Instead, I pulled out my phone and showed him the messages. Mason read them in silence. His jaw tightened more with every line. When he handed it back, his fingers brushed mine, but this time neither of us froze for the right reason. He looked angry. Not at me. That almost made it worse. Tyler needs to shut his mouth. That is your takeaway? My voice came out sharper than I meant. A few people looked over. I lowered it. This is exactly what I knew would happen. Mason's face changed. People talking. People remembering. He went still. I hated that I had said it, but I could not stop. You get to be the guy who changed. The guy who feels bad. The guy who stands up in bars now. But I am still the guy they remember laughing at. Mason looked like I had put a hand through his chest. Elliot. No. Do not do the soft voice thing. He closed his mouth. Good. I needed him quiet because if he kept looking at me like that, I was going to lose track of why I was upset. The barista called out an order. Someone laughed near the window. Normal life kept happening around us like mine was not splitting down the middle. Mason picked up the black coffee and slid it toward me slowly, stopping before his hand got too close. You do not have to take it. I stared at the cup. It is just coffee. I know. His eyes held mine. But I am trying to learn when even small things might feel like too much. That knocked the air out of me a little. Because it was small. And it was too much. And somehow he knew both. I took the coffee anyway. Our fingers touched around the cardboard sleeve. Longer this time. Not an accident. Not exactly a choice either. His thumb shifted like he almost covered my hand with his, then stopped. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. Before either of us could move, someone behind Mason muttered, "Well, this is cute." We both turned. Tyler stood near the entrance with a grin that made my skin crawl. Mason stepped back from me immediately, but not like he was embarrassed. Like he was afraid Tyler had made me feel cornered. Tyler lifted his eyebrows. "Relax. I am just saying. Did not know you two were a thing now." My throat went tight. Mason's voice went cold. "Leave." Tyler laughed. "Man, you are serious about him." The room went too quiet. Mason looked at me first, not Tyler. Checking. Asking. Giving me the choice. That tiny pause ruined me. Because the old Mason would have performed for the room. This Mason waited to see what I needed. I set the coffee down with a hand that was not steady. "I need to go." Mason moved aside before I even finished saying it. Outside, the cold air hit my face, and I finally breathed. Mason came out a few seconds later, but he stayed several feet away. "I am sorry." I shook my head. "You did not say it." "No, but this follows me." "So it follows you." I looked at him then. Rain was starting again, because of course it was. His shoulders were tense, his hands open at his sides, like he wanted to fix something and knew he had no right to touch it. "Maybe this is why it cannot work," I whispered. Mason's face went pale. "What?" I hated the way my chest hurt when I said it. "Maybe some people do not get a clean second version." He did not answer. Not right away. He just stood there, taking it, like he had promised himself he would never make my pain about his. Then he nodded once. "Okay." That hurt more than if he had argued. I walked away with the coffee still warm in my hand, and for the first time, proving it did not feel like enough. Because now other people were watching, and I was not sure I was brave enough to let him choose me in public. I did not see Mason for 4 days after that. Not at Bean House. Not outside the garage. Not in any accidental corner of the city that suddenly felt too small without him in it. He texted once, and only once. "I will give you space." I read it standing in my kitchen at midnight, wearing sweatpants, eating cereal from the box like a completely stable adult. I typed 3 different replies. "Thanks." "Okay." I did not ask for space. I deleted all of them. The worst thing about someone respecting your boundary is that you cannot even be mad at them for it. By Friday, my car started making a sound that could only be described as a dying lawn mower trapped under the hood. I ignored it for 6 miles. Then it got louder at a red light, and a guy in the next lane looked over like my Honda had personally offended him. I should have gone anywhere else. There were probably 50 mechanics in Portland. I drove to Carter and Sons anyway. Mason was under the hood of a pickup when I pulled in. He looked up at the sound of my engine, and for 1 second, his whole face changed. Relief. Then he buried it so fast I almost wondered if I had imagined it. He wiped his hands on a rag and walked over slowly. "Hey, my car is making a noise." He nodded like this was a perfectly normal sentence, and not me showing up after basically telling him we might be impossible. I heard. "Rude." His mouth twitched. "Your car is rude." I hated that I almost smiled. He checked me in at the front desk, then guided my car into one of the bays. I stood near the open garage door, arms folded, pretending the smell of oil and rubber did not remind me of his hoodie. Mason worked quietly for a while, but he was different now. Still careful, still respectful. But there was tension in the way he moved, like every silence had weight. When he leaned over the engine, his shoulders rose with a slow breath. When he passed me to grab a tool, he gave me too much room. Like he was trying to prove he could stay away, and neither of us liked how good he was at it. "You can sit inside," he murmured, nodding toward the waiting area. "It is warmer." "I am fine." He looked at my hands tucked under my arms. "You are freezing." I said I am fine. Mason stared at me for a second, then set the wrench down. Not annoyed. Not exactly. Just tired in a way that made my chest ache. He walked to a hook by the office and grabbed a navy hoodie. He came back and held it out. "Take it." I looked at the hoodie, then at him. "Mason, you do not have to read into it." His voice was quiet. "You are cold." That is exactly the problem. The words came out before I could stop them. He froze. So did I? The garage seemed to go still around us, except for a radio playing low somewhere in the back. Mason's fingers tightened around the hoodie. "What is?" I swallowed. "You keep doing things that feel simple, and they are not simple." His eyes stayed on mine. "They are simple to me." My heart kicked once. Hard. Mason looked away first, jaw working like he was fighting with himself. Then he let out a breath and stepped back, but he did not drop the hoodie. Actually, no. That is not true. I could barely hear myself. What? He rubbed the back of his neck, leaving a faint streak of grease near his jaw. It should not have been endearing. It was. I keep pretending this is just about making up for what I did. His voice lowered. It started that way. Maybe. But it is not just that anymore. My fingers went numb, and not from the cold. Mason, I know. He nodded quickly, like he was trying to stop himself before he ruined everything. I know I do not get to put that on you. Put what on me? He looked at me then, and there was no safe place to hide from it. I did not want you to leave that day. The garage door rattled lightly in the wind. Neither of us moved. At Bean House. My voice sounded too small. At Bean House. In the alley. Outside after Tyler opened his mouth. He gave a short, humorless laugh and looked down at the hoodie in his hands. Every time, actually. My chest tightened so fast it almost hurt. He continued before I could speak. And when Tyler said we were a thing, I hated that it scared you. But I did not hate the way it sounded. Everything inside me went quiet. That was the sentence. The one that made it impossible to pretend this was still one-sided. Impossible to call it guilt. Impossible to fold it neatly into the past. Mason looked terrified after saying it. Not of me. Of himself. Of wanting too much. He held the hoodie out again. But this time his hand was not steady. You can still tell me to stop. I reached for it slowly. Our fingers touched around the fabric, soft cotton between us, grease on his knuckles, cold air at my back. He did not let go right away. Neither did I. I do not know what I want, I admitted. Mason's eyes softened, but there was pain there too. That is okay. Is it? No, his mouth lifted just barely, sad and honest. But I can handle not knowing better than I can handle pretending I do not care. My throat tightened. I pulled the hoodie closer, but my hand stayed trapped against his for one more second. Long enough to count. Long enough to feel real. Then a mechanic shouted Mason's name from the back, and we both stepped apart like we had been caught. Mason cleared his throat, turning back to the engine. I put on the hoodie because I was cold. That was what I told myself. But when the sleeves fell past my wrists and the familiar smell of soap and motor oil surrounded me, I knew the truth. I was not wearing it because I needed warmth. I was wearing it because he had offered, and for once, I wanted to keep something from him. I told myself the hoodie meant nothing, which was hard to believe while I was still wearing it 2 days later. Not constantly. I was not that pathetic. Just at night. And once while answering client emails. And maybe once when I went downstairs to get the mail because my apartment building had terrible heating and absolutely no witnesses. Except there was a witness. Nora was standing in the lobby with 2 iced coffees and the expression of someone who had just found evidence at a crime scene. Her eyes dropped to the navy hoodie, then slowly came back to my face. That is not yours. I grabbed one of the coffees from her. Good morning to you too. Elliot. It was cold. Inside your apartment? I walked past her toward the stairs. Portland is damp. She followed, clearly enjoying herself way too much. Is Portland also 6'2" and emotionally reformed? I stopped on the step and turned. Can you not make jokes about it? Her smile faded. Okay. That was worse. The soft version of Nora always made me feel like I had to be honest. Upstairs, she sat on my couch while I stood near the kitchen counter, tugging at the sleeves like they had personally betrayed me. I do not know what I am doing, I admitted. With Mason? I nodded. Saying his name felt like opening a door I had been leaning against. He told me he did not hate the idea of us being a thing. Nora's eyebrows lifted. Wow. Do not wow. That is a wow sentence. I rubbed both hands over my face. The hoodie smelled faintly like him, which was deeply inconvenient. And I liked hearing it. That is the problem. Nora did not answer right away. She looked at me carefully, like she was deciding how hard to push. Maybe liking it does not mean you forgave everything. It feels like it does. It does not. People will think it does. Her face softened. People already think whatever they want. I wanted that to be enough. It was not. Because by that afternoon, the universe decided to prove my point. I stopped by the garage to pick up my car after work, hoodie folded in my bag like I was smuggling evidence. Mason was at the front counter with a woman I recognized from the other day at the garage. The pretty one. Dark hair, red jacket, easy smile. She touched his arm while laughing at something, and Mason actually laughed back. Not the careful almost laugh he used with me. A real one. My stomach tightened before I could talk myself out of it. Stupid. Completely stupid. He was allowed to laugh. He was allowed to know women. He was allowed to have a life that did not revolve around making me feel emotionally unstable. Then she leaned closer and said something I could not hear. Mason glanced toward the office, then back at her, softer. My brain did what it did best. It turned a normal moment into a warning. Of course. Maybe I had misunderstood everything. Maybe I did not hate how it sounded, had been confusion. Guilt. A moment. Maybe he woke up the next day and realized getting involved with me was too messy, too public, too tied to a version of himself he wanted to forget. I stepped back before either of them saw me. Too late. Mason looked up. Relief crossed his face again, quick and unguarded, then shifted when he saw mine. Elliot. The woman turned. Oh, hi. I gave a tight smile. I can come back. Mason was already moving around the counter. No, your car is ready. Looks like you are busy. The words came out colder than I meant. The woman's eyebrows lifted slightly. Mason stopped, studying my face. Lena was just dropping off paperwork. Lena smiled. And stealing free coffee. She is my cousin, Mason added, too fast. My face went hot. Nora would have called it a wow moment. I called it wanting the floor to open. I did not ask. Mason's mouth parted like he wanted to say something. Then he nodded. Right. The silence after that was awful. Lena looked between us, then picked up her keys. I am going to go before I accidentally become a plot twist. She patted Mason's shoulder and left, mercifully. I stared at a stack of invoices on the counter like they were fascinating. Mason leaned back against the desk, arms loose at his sides. Did that bother you? My heart jumped straight into my throat. No, too fast. Too obvious. Mason noticed. His expression changed. Not smug, not pleased. More careful than that. Okay. I hated that he let me have the lie. It is not my business who you talk to. I know. We are not. I stopped because I did not know what word came next. Friends? Something? A mistake? Mason looked down, and for the first time since this whole thing started, he seemed to pull away from me before I could pull away from him. Yeah, I know. That hurt. Which made me angry. Which made me stupid. I pulled the folded hoodie from my bag and set it on the counter. Here. His eyes went to it, then back to me. You did not have to bring it back today. I know. Elliot. His voice was soft, and that almost broke me. If this is too much, just say that. I laughed once, quiet and sharp. I do not even know what this is. Mason's face tightened like the words had landed exactly where I threw them. He picked up the hoodie slowly. Then maybe we should stop acting like it is anything. The second he said it, regret flashed across his face. But the damage was already done. My chest went cold. Maybe we should. I took my keys from the counter and walked out before he could see how badly that hurt. In the parking lot, I sat in my car with both hands on the wheel, breathing hard, telling myself this was better, cleaner, safer. But when Mason came out a minute later and stopped under the garage lights, holding the hoodie against his chest like he had lost something, I realized the misunderstanding was not the worst part. The worst part was that neither of us knew how to ask the other one to stay. For 3 days, Mason and I became strangers who knew exactly where to hurt each other. He did not show up at Bean House. I did not drive past the garage. He did not text. I did not check my phone every 10 minutes. That last part was a lie. By Thursday night, I was sitting on my living room floor, laptop open, work untouched, staring at the empty space beside my couch where his hoodie had been folded for 2 days before I returned it. My apartment felt colder without it. That was dramatic. I hated that it was also true. At almost 9, my phone buzzed. Mason, can we talk? I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Then it buzzed again. Not over text. In person. If you say no, I will leave it alone. My chest tightened. I typed yes before I could talk myself out of it. 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock at my door. Not loud. Not demanding. Just enough to say he was there. I opened it and immediately wished I had taken longer. Mason stood in the hallway in his work jacket, hair damp from rain, one hand wrapped around the back of his neck. He looked tired. Not in the charming way. In the way people look when they have been replaying one sentence for 72 hours. Hi. I stepped aside. Hi. He came in slowly, like my apartment had rules he was still learning. For a second, neither of us spoke. The heater clicked. A car passed outside. My stupid heart acted like this was a medical emergency. Mason looked at the floor, then at me. I did not mean what I said. I crossed my arms. Which part? His mouth tightened. Fair. The part where I acted like this could be nothing. That landed hard. I looked away first. You sounded pretty sure. I was scared. The words came out fast, almost rough, like he had been holding them in his teeth. That is not an excuse. I saw you hand me back the hoodie, and I thought you had decided I was too much. That this was too much. So I tried to make it easier for you to walk away. I let out a quiet laugh, but it hurt. By walking away first? Mason nodded once. Yeah, stupid plan. I wanted to stay angry. It would have been safer. Instead, I stared at his hands. Grease still marked one knuckle, even though he had clearly washed up. I thought you regretted saying it. His eyes lifted. What? At the garage. About Tyler. About not hating how it sounded. My voice got smaller, which annoyed me. I thought maybe you said it in the moment, and then realized I was complicated. Mason took one step forward, then stopped himself. Elliot, I have regretted a lot of things in my life. His throat moved. That was not one of them. The room went quiet. Too quiet. My arms loosened. I did not mean them to. Then what do you want from me? He looked like that question hurt, but he did not avoid it. Nothing you do not want to give. That is not an answer. It is the only answer I am allowed to have. I looked at him then. Really looked. The careful distance. The tired eyes. The way his hands stayed open at his sides like he was afraid, even clenching them would feel like pressure. Something in my chest cracked, not big enough to break me, just enough to let the truth through. I am tired, Mason. His face softened immediately. I know. No. I mean, I am tired of pretending I only feel one thing. My voice shook on the last word. I hated that. I kept going anyway. I am still angry. I still remember everything. I still hear people's voices when they say your name like I am supposed to explain myself. But then you look at me like that, and I forget what I was supposed to be protecting. Mason did not move. He barely breathed. How do I look at you? I should have laughed it off. I should have said something mean enough to put the wall back up. Instead, I whispered, like I matter to you. His eyes dropped for half a second. When they came back, they were careful and wrecked. You do. There it was. No big speech. No perfect line. Just two words that made my whole apartment feel smaller. I rubbed both hands over my face, because looking at him was getting dangerous. That does not make this easy. I know. It does not erase anything. I know. And if this goes wrong, I am the one who looks stupid. Mason flinched, but stayed. I hate that. Me too. No, I shook my head. You do not get it. People already thought I was weak back then. If I let you in now, it feels like I am proving them right. His face changed. Pain first, then understanding. He stepped closer, slow enough that I could stop him. I did not. You are not weak for wanting something good after something bad. My throat went tight. Do not make it sound simple. It is not simple. He was close now. Not touching. Just close enough that I could see rain caught on his lashes. But I need you to know something. I looked up. What? Mason's voice dropped. I am not trying to become part of your life, so people think I am better. I am trying because every time I leave, I want to come back. My fingers curled against my palms. Mason, and I do not know what that makes us. He gave a small, nervous breath. But I know I do not want to go back to normal. Normal was me pretending I did not care. I am done with that. The space between us felt thin. Too thin. His hand lifted slightly, then stopped, hovering near mine. This time, I was the one who moved. Just an inch. My fingers brushed his. Mason froze. His eyes searched mine, asking the same silent question he always asked now. Is this okay? I did not answer with words. I let my fingers stay. His hand closed around mine slowly, gently, like he was afraid I might disappear. My heart pounded so hard it was embarrassing. I am still scared, I whispered. Mason nodded, thumb barely moving against my knuckles. Me too. For a second, neither of us looked away. No one interrupted. No phone buzzed. No door opened. It was just my apartment, the rain, and Mason Carter holding my hand like it was something he had no right to rush. I did not forgive everything that night. I did not suddenly know what we were. But when he asked, quietly, "Do you want me to leave?" I looked down at our hands and realized I had already given him my answer. Not yet. The next morning did not feel like a movie. There was no sunrise confession. No dramatic music. No perfect version of us waking up suddenly fixed. Mason slept on my couch because the rain got bad and because neither of us wanted the night to end too quickly. I gave him an old blanket. He thanked me like I had handed him something priceless. And when I woke up around 7, he was already in my kitchen, standing awkwardly in his socks, trying to figure out my coffee maker like it was a bomb. "Do not touch that button," I mumbled from the hallway. Mason froze with one finger in the air. "I was helping. You were about to flood my counter." He looked down at the machine, then back at me. It looked confident. I laughed before I could stop myself. Not a big laugh. Just enough. Mason heard it, though. His whole face, softened like that tiny sound, had rearranged his morning. I looked away because it was too early to be perceived like that. We drank coffee sitting on opposite ends of my small couch, closer than we needed to be, not close enough to scare me. Our hands did not touch. Not at first. But his knee bumped mine once, and this time neither of us moved away like it was a crime. Later, he stood by the door with his jacket in one hand, looking like he did not know how to leave without breaking something. "I can give you space today." I leaned against the wall, coffee warm between my hands. "Do you want to?" His eyes lifted. Honest. Tired. Warm. No, my chest tightened, but not in the old way. "Then do not disappear." Mason nodded slowly. "Okay." That was all. Okay. Somehow it felt bigger than any promise. We did not become easy after that. I still had bad days. There were mornings when old memories came back sharp for no reason. There were times Mason reached for me too quickly and caught himself, stepping back with guilt all over his face. There were times I got quiet, and he thought he had ruined everything again. But the difference was, we started saying things out loud before they turned into walls. A week later, I went back to Bean House. Mason was already there, standing in line, holding 2 coffees. Black for me. Too much cream for him. The barista with the nose ring saw us and grinned like she had been waiting for the season finale. "So are we calling him your friend now?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Mason looked at me, not scared exactly, but ready to follow whatever answer I chose. That was what got me. Not the coffee. Not the apology. Not even the way he looked at me like I mattered. It was that he kept giving me the choice. I took the cup from him, and our fingers touched around the sleeve. This time, I let them stay. The barista's grin got worse. "Okay. Noted." Mason's ears went pink. I almost smiled. Almost. We took our usual table by the window. For once, I did not sit across from him. I sat beside him. It was a small thing. Stupidly small. But Mason went quiet when he noticed. His hand rested on the table between us. Open, uncertain. I stared at it for a second, feeling my pulse in my throat. Then I placed my hand over his. His fingers closed around mine gently. No rush. No performance. Just warmth. The door opened behind us, and for 1 second, my body tensed out of habit. People came in. People talked. The city kept moving. Nobody laughed. Nobody pointed. And even if they had, Mason did not let go. Neither did I. He leaned closer, voice low enough that only I could hear. "Is this okay?" I looked down at our hands. His thumb was still, waiting for permission even now. My heart hurt a little, but softly. "Yeah," I whispered. "It is okay." Mason exhaled like he had been holding that breath for years. I did not tell him I forgave everything. Because I did not. Not all at once. Maybe forgiveness was not a switch. Maybe it was a door you opened slowly, checking each step before you walked through. But I knew this much. The boy from my past had made me want to disappear. The man sitting beside me now made me feel seen without making me feel trapped. And maybe that did not erase the hallway, or the names, or all the years I spent carrying things he never had to think about. But it gave me something new to carry too. His hand in mine. A black coffee going cold. Rain tapping against the window. And Mason Carter, sitting beside me in public, not hiding, not rushing, not asking me to forget. Just staying. Sometimes love does not start with a kiss. Sometimes it starts with someone proving, again and again, that your pain is safe with them. And that morning, when Mason squeezed my hand under the table and smiled at me like he still could not believe I was there, I finally squeezed back.